Welcome to Causing the Effect, a podcast focused on the exploration of your mind, body, and spirit.
Yo, what is going on, Causing the Effect? One of your favorite guests, Dr. Michael Nuccitelli, my friend, New York State licensed psychologist, cyber psychologist, online safety educator, all-around good guy. What up, Dr. Nucc?
Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you for having me on. And we have a hopefully, not only an interesting topic to talk about today, talking about predatory trolls, but hopefully we can educate and create awareness for some of your listeners, some of your followers about dealing with trolls, because it is getting serious out there.
Yes, so we are going to be breaking down the predatory troll today. We'll have Dr. Nucc explain it in a second, but I just want to say, Dr. Nucc, thank you for coming. You always have the most viewed episodes. People love this shit. There's so many episodes Dr. Nucc has done with me. Pick your poison on what you want to do. This will be a two-parter. If you're listening to this is Friday. The one right after this is with our friend Ross. We will get into all of this, so I think these go nice to be back to back. Dr. Nucc, I lay it out to you. Where do you want to start? Who are we shitting on? Where are we going?
Well, most importantly, what we're going to talk about today, although we're trying to, provide a little bit of levity, it's a very serious issue.
Absolutely.
First and foremost, again, by day, I have my own group practice. I work with the chronically mentally ill, schizophrenia, schizoaffective, bipolar, so forth and so on. So that population, the chronically mentally ill, most of those do not spend time online. Okay. Most of them are living day to day. Obviously, I'm providing therapy to these folks. Wonderful, by the way, in residential facilities. But after work and on the weekends, and since 2010 is when I present, I educate, I research my concept called iPredator. And what iPredator is a dark side of cyberspace concept that presents 8 different types of online assailants. And real quickly, and I like to say them every time I get a chance to talk, I'll say them quickly. We have cyberbullies. Those are children. Then we have the adult form of cyberbullying, which are your internet trolls, your cyber stalkers, and your cyber harassers. We have your cyber criminals, your cyber terrorists, and the darkest and the most deviant is the online child predators and the online child pornography consumers and distributors. Those 8 types make up the global concept of iPredator. Now, what we're going to be talking about today, and thank you, Scott, and also, thank you. Shout out goes out to Ross.
Big shout
and
out.
Social Media Monster. His documentary is absolutely incredible. Eventually that will be, hopefully Netflix or, a national streaming service picks that up, because it is so important for people to learn about what I call, what many of you call it internet trolls. I call it the predatory troll. So what we're going to be talking about today is the predatory troll.
Dr. Nucc, what is because we're laying it out very nicely. We have the upper at the top, and now we're banging it down another level. What is the difference between an internet troll and the predatory troll?
Excellent. And this is why I love for you as a host. You're always spot on. You always nail on the head. So the first thing is the internet troll has been around, I don't know if necessarily since the beginning of the internet, but they've been around for quite some time. So what I call the classic internet troll, most of us have been targeted by a classic internet troll. The classic internet troll, which, as I said, has been around for years, and they go online, whether it be in social media and message boards and forums and online gaming, and they go, and their job is, the internet troll is to provoke you, to piss you off. And once they provoke you, once they piss you off, they give themselves the proverbial pat on the back, and then they go on, and then they go and they provoke others. That is the classic internet troll. They are ridiculous, they're silly, they're nonsensical, but they're manageable because they come in, they provoke, and then they leave, all right? Not to say that they are lovely to have, because they are just as obnoxious and just as pathetic as other types of iPredators, but they are not the predatory troll, okay? Now, when we talk about iPredators, whether we're talking about the internet troll, we're talking about the predatory troll, or a cyber criminal, there are 3 criteria. 1, the use of information technology to harm, to target another online user. 2 is a self-awareness of causing harm using information technology. And then number 3 is what I call cyber stealth. And what cyber stealth is the creation, the implementation, and activation of online deception, whether you're trying to completely hide your identity, whether you're trying to blur it, or where what a predatory troll will be is to gather data about you and then create what are called disinformation campaigns. So those are the 3 criteria that make up the iPredator. All predatory trolls, all internet trolls are iPredators. But what we're talking about today, Scott, is the predatory troll. And what I believe when we talk a little bit about social media monster and the central character, the individual of social media monster, he is a predatory troll.
And it seems that the predatory troll, and I know you're more experienced with this than I am, and I dealt with it a little bit, and it really seems like fear, they really like to play on the fear of whether it's the disinformation or making somebody look bad. How has your experience been of dealing with this on a personal level? Because it's not only him, there's been multiple people that you've had to deal with as far as that fear campaign, I feel like. And I feel, because even Ross was telling me how many people had kind of back out because, you know, I understand, and I understand in the media world, if you're in a big, and that's why the media, he was saying in the media world that people at these news channels, there's hierarchies and they'll just, you know, they don't want anything to do with it. I get it. But how does somebody work themselves through this with pushing fear to the side?
Well, that is a huge question, my friend. So before we go into that big thing is about the predatory troll. So as I was saying, the internet troll, the classic internet troll, is there to provoke you, to piss you off, and to move on. Predatory troll is a whole different creature, which I believe came around, I would say around 2010, 2015, and now they run rampant. The predatory troll looks to target you, your loved one, your job, your career, your passions, your online presence, your reputation, your trustworthiness, every aspect about you. The predatory troll looks to totally decimate who you are online, and if they can succeed, is to impact your offline life. A predatory troll will go after your job, will go to your employers, will go after your loved ones, will go after your children, will go after every facet of your life to totally character assassinate you, your loved ones. And if they're successful, they can actually succeed in getting you terminated or getting whatever your passion is to totally destroy everything you're about. And that's what predatory trolls are.
And that's terrifying. Honestly, it's terrifying. I understand that Dr. Nuge, myself, and even Ross are not in positions where it really affects us. And I think that's kind of why we could be a shield, or at least you guys are way more. I was telling Ross, you guys are the main generals. I'm like a little soldier in the back. Like, I'll do what I could. But for people that if you have kids, if you have a boss, like, it's so wacky. I'll tell you what happened. We put out the episode, and in my head, I had this little thing of maybe this is before we really got into the wackiness of this guy. I said to myself, maybe I could get to him. Maybe I'll have him come on or something. In my brain, I was like, maybe I'll be the good guy and I could be he just needed by the time that went through my head, that was the next day that we got all the emails from him, and me and you were included, and it was just a whack job. And I'm like, holy shit. And now he fucked with the wrong dude. Cause like, I'm untouchable, Dr. Nuge, physically, mentally, spiritually, everything. And I had, you know, my clients are all billionaires. I had general counsels. I had my general counsels look at this, and I got a little nervous. I was a little fearful. And I said, what if, you know, what if you guys think of this and that? And the general counsel, she's for one of the biggest billionaires in New York. She said, Scott, when I Google you, all that comes up is mindfulness and helping people and all this. She's like, what are you worried about? Don't worry about a thing. I was like, oh, okay. So that's why I was like, okay, let's fucking go to town. But for people that don't have that, how do you even navigate through life if you have a boss, if you have this, even like attacking you with, like, you really just, it causes so much work. I know you had he tried to go after you too. It's just like it is, because like when he wrote that article about you, knowing you on a personal level, I was just filled with rage, and I felt like I had him winning there. And I've kind of let that go a little bit. But how do you navigate through this situation?
Well, again, you hit the nail on the head. And for me, I wrote iPredator back in 2009, 2010. So I have been trolled a bunch of times. And for me, though, when I have been trolled, just like now with his name is Matthew Burdick, he is the central character of Social Media Monster. He is a predatory troll. And we'll talk about him a little bit later on because he succinctly fits the profile of what is called a predatory troll and an predator. But I have been trolled for many years, but for me, because I am the creator of an online assailant concept called iPredator, what he does, what others have done to me, and all the disinformation, the character assassination, it justifies and validates iPredator. So the more they do it, although I don't enjoy it, it actually validates what I've been saying for years, is that there are people out there that will go to any lengths to totally destroy your reputation. And Matthew Burdick, as well as others throughout, since I've written iPredator, have trolled me and have trolled others. And here we are, Mr. Burdick, as I said, the central character of an incredible documentary that I hope everyone one day views, Social Media Monster. You will see the lengths a predatory or troll will go to destroy your reputation. But the fascinating thing about Mr. Burdick and all predatory trolls is that they meet the criteria of the iPredator, but even more so, going back to 2014, I wasn't involved in the study, and I always bring it up when we talk about internet trolls. It was done by the University of Manitoba. And they did a huge study on internet trolls. And what they found out, it's called the dark tetrad, or some call it dark triad, the dark tetrad. And what they found, the character traits of internet trolls, obviously predatory trolls as well, is they're at much higher rates of being psychopathic, narcissistic, Machiavellian, narcissistic, psychopathic, Machiavellian, and sadistic. I think I got all four. Psychopathic, sadistic, narcissistic, and Machiavellian, the dark tetrad. And those are four character traits of the troll. And this is what we see. I've seen this, and when I was trolled, when I'm helping in my volunteer work, I've seen it in others who have been trolled and have been targeted by other online users. And most certainly here, when we look at what is called, Ross had defined the social media monster, Matthew Burdick, there is definitely the dark tetrad.
And particularly with this guy, it's really running rampant. And the one piece that you said earlier was that they are aware of what they're doing. Do you think this man is aware? Because it seems that he thinks he's the victim, but he's the one, like everything he says about Ross, about you, it's kind of, I feel like he's letting, it's him kind of giving up what he is on the inside. You could see what he thinks of himself through what he says about others in a way. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Again, I've never met the man. I've never even spoken to the man. Unfortunately, and this is how I got involved with Mr. Burdick and the social media monster, is that I had retweeted the trailer of Social Media Monster on my Twitter. Now, anybody could go to my social media profiles. I'm not a heavy user, other than every other day as I post my novice graphic design educational memes, my images, schools and organizations use them. And then I also share other things that I find online that are relevant to online safety and to iPredator. So because I had tweeted the Social Media Monster trailer, that's when he started targeting me. Mr. Burdick had sent an email to he obviously went to my website, sent it to the host of my practice, possibly thinking it went to a boss. I own my own group practice, MN Psychological Services. So that fell on deaf ears. It went to, one of my practice administrators who had called me. So he immediately began to target me. Then, from what I understand, he wrote an article about me. But this is what predatory trolls do. You'll also so what I had to do, he made threats that he was going to report me to the ethical bodies, the saying that I breached ethical guidelines, to the New York State Education Department. Now, what's interesting, Scott, this is the exact same thing that happened to me back in 2014 and 2015.
Oh, wow.
Now, what Mr. Burdick didn't do is he obviously didn't read Troll Triad, because that concept, Troll Triad, which we can talk a little bit about, I wrote Troll Triad because back in 2002, 2015, I was targeted by a group of internet trolls where they actually, the lead troll actually wrote a formal letter to the New York State Office of Professional Discipline, New York State Education Department, calling for immediate revocation of my license, alleging that I was engaging in attempted homicide by internet. Okay. Now, as laughable as that is, because he wrote it in the correct format, they had to do a formal investigation. Now, obviously, it fell on deaf ears. Nothing ever came about it. But imagine if I was an individual that wasn't adept or wasn't abreast or wasn't skilled to what internet trolls do. I could have literally, had a panic attack. So the Troll Triad back then attempted to get my license revoked based on saying I was engaging in unethical practices, very similar to what Mr. Burdick was alleging. Here again, which I am going to be, posting by time you run this, I will have a blog post, and you can actually read, listen, and see what it's like to be a predatory troll. And what Mr. Burdick will do, once this is out there, he will obviously either say it wasn't him. He will try to minimize it. He will redirect everything that actually is saying. But just like I did with the Troll Triad, and when I was trolled, called Shadow Troll, I present the evidence, and you can decide, the reader, on whether or not this individual is culpable and whether or not he is an predator.
Could you go a little deeper on the concept of the Troll Triad that you mentioned?
Yes. Well, the Troll Triad, as I said, for an entire year, I was trolled by 3 individuals. Okay. And ultimately, this is where I came up with an archetypal construct called Troll Triad. The cerebral, who is the troll, that is the brains of the group, the one that comes up with the disinformation campaigns and what is the content that's going to go out there. The provocateur, that is the second type of troll that is now going to go out and, almost like an adjutant, is going to go out and provoke others and see. So the provocateur takes the cerebral's content and ideas and now tries to inflame the situation to get others to get on board, to provoke them. Okay. And then in my situation, you have the crier. Now, the crier, as you know, the crier now is the one that goes out and spreads the information. In my situation, the crier, he was the host of an internet media, a podcast, where he used his podcast to go on and to spread disinformation content about Dr. Nuccitelli, about my content, and about my work. So the cerebral of the Troll Triad came up with the idea, the plans, what is the content that's going to go out there. The provocateur then takes that content, sends it out there, and provokes others to go see, to agitate others, to try to get them to get on board. And then the crier, in my situation, had an actual podcast, internet media program that went out to spread it. So I ended up starting to get emails and phone calls from the listeners of that internet podcast. And that is when I came up with the idea of the Troll Triad. And Scott, by the grace of God, if they were here, I would give them hugs because Troll Triad now is part of the iPredator lexicon. When I presented to the state of Colorado, when I presented to the state of Vermont, and when I presented to an international conference for action against stalking, I had briefly introduced the idea of Troll Triad, because what Troll Triad is, Scott, are groups of internet trolls that target an individual, target a group, an organization, or target an ideology. All right. So we have the troll triad, and then now we have the predatory troll. And the predatory troll is the severe manifestation of the eye predator. The predatory troll almost, and again, with Mr. Burdick, Scott, I don't know this man other than what little I've read and watching the documentary. I know nothing about him. What I do know is what he did about me and the allegations, and to make allegations that he has filed charges, complaints to the New York State to the Office of Professional Discipline. That again is the same thing that happened several years ago to me.
And everybody, I'll link that below. Dr. Nucci put a lot of work into the troll triad typologies on this page. He goes through, he presents a bullet list, exhibits, evidence of what these people were: copy fraud, defamation, slander, online deception. I guess if you didn't go through that, you would be less prepared to deal with this, because I'm thinking 3-on-1 sounds like a freaking shit show. How has that situation been similar, and how has that situation been different dealing with this man?
The difference is then 2014 with the troll triad, there were 3 of them. Yeah. Plus, in addition to the 3 of them, the crier had access to an internet radio program. So he had an entire, a population of listeners that, one, he could swindle them into believing, because the cerebral, the provocateur were good at creating disinformation and character assassination. But in that situation, he had an entire listener base that were now emailing me, calling me, and then going out and trying to close down my accounts, so forth and so on. In this situation with Mr. Burdick, the predatory troll, this is one individual. So that is the first difference. But the difference is, and again, when it comes to Matthew Burdick, him as a predatory troll, again, the only thing I know about him is what I've seen through watching the documentary and him targeting me. I've never spoken to him. And other than what I'm publishing now, will be the first time I actually have written content related to Matthew Burdick. But as you will read in the post, not just read, you will hear in his own words, he is alleging that I'm going out and saying that he's about to engage in a mass murder, mass shooting. Where he gets that from, I haven't the slightest idea, but you will hear in an audio file that I have in this, him actually making these allegations. But this is what predatory trolls will do, is they engage in what is called a disinformation campaign. And what a disinformation campaign is, intentionally creating information and content that you know is incorrect, is false, but yet you go out and you spread it. Misinformation is publishing inaccurate and false facts. But the difference is with misinformation, you don't know that it's incorrect. All right. We all make mistakes. Disinformation is when you know you intentionally are creating content and you're putting it out there to harm and destroy a person's reputation and trustworthiness. And that's what makes it so serious.
Because I was surprised how many emails I got of people like, oh, I deal with, I thought a troll was something light and somebody who leaves a comment, and then all of a sudden, no, these are predators that are attacking your character. How would you coach someone to deal with a troll? And I'll tell you that Ross, he admitted that do not do what he did and attack the troll, because then he ends up with the 10 years. But how would you coach somebody on dealing with the troll?
That's a great, the first thing it's understanding, Scott, is that we have internet troll here, predatory troll here. So it's on a continuum of severity. It's not a black and white issue. Okay. So you think about internet trolls are the pains in the asses. They can be obnoxious, so forth and so on. And then it moves into the severe form of the predatory troll. So you have most that are mild, some are mild, and some move into severe. So the first thing is, we all have heard this, is don't feed the trolls. 80% of the time, if it's a classic internet troll and they start to try to provoke you, whether it's in online gaming environments, whether it's online and social media, is don't feed the troll, don't pay attention to them, don't address them, because ultimately what they'll do is they'll go and they'll focus and try to provoke somebody else. But when you begin to move, as I said, into the severity, when they become more Machiavellian, more sadistic, more psychopathic, more narcissistic, when they begin to behave in the manner where maybe they're actually access to personality disorder and they're becoming true predatory trolls, you can no longer just practice don't feed the trolls. In the 12 years that I have volunteered after work and on the weekends, helping folks who have been targeted, a significant percentage of them have been trolled, not just internet trolls, because we all know when you get internet troll, as long as you don't pay attention, oh, go screw yours, they ultimately will go focus on somebody else. But in my volunteer work, when I've gotten calls, and I still get them today, it's not just this little thing of a troll pissing them off. It's a troll that's going after you. It's going after your mother, going after your coworkers, going after your social media, and going after your ideologies and different aspects of who you are. And that's what the predatory troll, it's almost like there's an obsessive compulsive quality about it, to where they are relentlessly doing it. And it's not just intermittently. It seems to take a life of its own where they're doing it almost on a daily basis.
And in this guy's case, it's every second. It looked like, I don't know where has the time to. It's engulfed. And I think that was the one thing about this guy, just so much time to just go after people.
One of the things that you're going to see in social media monster, and again, I'm not involved in it per se. I think it's incredible. But then again, Scott, I think all documentaries, all media that deals in online safety, calling to awareness the reality and the growth of what I call the eye predator, I'm always going to support. But particularly, Ross has done an exceptional, stellar job on presenting what I call the predatory troll. The title of the documentary is Social Media Monster. I have been, honored to have a private viewing to see the whole thing. And it is by far one of the best documentaries I've ever seen presenting the eye predator. Now, the central character is Matthew Burdick, Mr. Matthew Burdick. And because I shared the trailer to that off you, he began to target me. And once you publish this, I am sure he will target me again. He will likely target you. He will likely, he's been targeting, Ross and the whole idea. And that will continue. But this is the nature of the predatory troll. When you read my blog post is only a small crumb of the big picture of the social media monster. I'm only presenting what he's done to me. But what I want to hit home today, Scott, is understanding that there are thousands of Matthew Burdicks. There are thousands of predatory trolls out there. Matthew Burdick is but one of thousands. And as we walk through the information age, we are going to have to address the freedom of speech, the First Amendment, the issue of, is there such thing as criminal defamation? How are these Matthew Burdicks, these predatory trolls, how come they're not being held accountable? That is what we need to address.
And this comes down to social responsibility of social media platforms. How is it going to take somebody like this really doing something terrible for a Facebook to wake up, for an Instagram to wake up? Because let's say, God forbid, something happens. There's a decade of this guy doing this. And it's not like there's one thing. Me and Dr. Nuch watched, I can't stop watching the video from, Ross told me I could talk about it. That video where he cursed the judge. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. There's videos, there's thousands of, how much does it take? Is it just, or is it also just the essence of being anonymous on the internet that's hard for somebody like Facebook. Oh yeah, they could block them. Twitter could block them, but then he makes another one. How do you catch this?
Well, it's hard to catch. I mean, again, I don't want to promote Elon Musk and Twitter, but some of the recent stuff that's happened in the last couple of days, again, it has nothing to do with whether you're Republican or Democrat, but the fact that if this is true, that Twitter actually held factual information back that affected a political campaign. This is where platforms, whether it be Facebook, whether it be Twitter, any platforms, past, present, and future, they have to be able to present facts. Okay. When you hold information back of facts, are you engaging in disinformation? Because disinformation is creating false information. But then there's also holding back information. Dealing with individuals such as Matthew Burdick, you now bring up the idea of freedom of speech. Okay. How far can an online user go to target you? Okay, to completely decimate, causing the effect positive and everything you're about. How is he allowed, he and or they and or any predatory troll, should they be allowed to go out and target other people? Now, as you mentioned earlier, you are an influencer. I am the creator of a concept. For me, it justifies my concept. It validates everything I've been saying for years, that we have to do something about these folks, okay? But there are many people who are losing their jobs, who are not getting admitted into school, who are getting into conflicts with their loved ones because predatory trolls are putting out felonious, malevolent, character assassination content that has nothing to do with the online user. And now all of a sudden they're in adversary relationships with their loved ones, with coworkers, so forth and so on. Why? Because a predatory troll has now hooked his I don't want to say talent, but has really gotten, like a parasite, has begun to suck the blood, I hate to say that, of an individual, but this is what they do.
And Ross and I discussed this briefly. I think Ross brought it up of like, why I'm so not just why would I promote and want to be for it? And the simple reason for me, and I sometimes I get in trouble for this. It's just I will not let evil or malevolence stand if I could help it. It's that simple. Whether it's to do on the train, whether it's this or that, you can't in your soul. And I feel like in this situation, when dealing with a troll, it's hard to push your feelings aside, particularly when there's people that not loved ones. Like I like you a lot, Dr. Nucci. I just don't want this happening to people. I don't want people to know that we're willing to take a stand. And it's such a weird thing that I feel like he doesn't want this stuff spoken about. But if he didn't do the trolling, then you wouldn't have more bad stuff spoken bad about you. You know what I'm saying? Like
of course,
and this comes into cognitive empathy, is the ability to recognize and understand other people's emotions, right? I think the predatory troll knows that. And that's what's scary, is that you know what you're doing. But then there's something called effective empathy, which is the ability to experience and internalize other people's emotions. And I think that is where the predatory troll lacks. You don't know how to share the emotional experience of what you're doing and what you're creating. So it's such a fine line of, oh, I see how you feel, but fuck you, I'm going to do it anyway. It's mind-boggling. This is why people are so into it. There's just something. It's a fine line.
Well, with the dark tetrad, again, if we assume this is correct, and I do, because that's why I mentioned it, what you just said, the narcissistic and the psychopathic aspects of the dark tetrad, of the predatory troll, you deserve it. All right. You deserve to be targeted. Why? Because I'm a journalist, I'm a filmmaker, I'm an activist, I'm this, I am a pro-community, I'm doing this to protect others. They come up with every bullshit reason why to justify why they're targeting, when in reality, they're not taking responsibility for their actions. Hence, this is the dark tetrad. So we don't have too much time left today. So I wanted to basically present, I created a checklist for folks. So if you are an online user, it's completely free. And maybe when you put that out there, the show, you can put the link, is that it is the predatory troll checklist. And what it is, it's 100 items that I created, that I put together, and I based it on my years of volunteer work, of me being trolled, my research, and essentially it addresses whether or not you're being just trolled by your classic internet troll, or whether you're dealing with a predatory troll. And they're big differences, because if you're being targeted by a predatory troll, you can't just don't feed the troll. You can't just ignore it, because by ignoring it, all you're doing is essentially incensing them and causing them to even increase even more.
Yeah, and I think that's another piece of the real difference there is the level of psychopathy within the predatory troll
Almost
is
certainly.
really up there. Because honestly, Dr. Nuge, if this guy would have emailed me before that crazy email he sent me, he should have said, listen, I just want to give a side to him. Maybe I would have thought about it, but just no empathy, just out of control. I was like, all right, you're out. You're out, Jack. It's just, there's no connection to human beings, but that, I just, it's such that empathy piece. Do you think it's possible to teach that? Is that something that a predatory troll, if somebody was in this and they could see, okay, I'm doing something wrong, something's off. Could we teach that? Is that something that a psychologist can get through? Is this fixable?
Again, as it relates to Matthew Burdick or all predatory trolls, you know, although I'm a psychologist, I have a doctorate degree. I was a forensic psychologist for some time doing assessments. You would have to be able to do a battery of psychological assessments. I don't know if Matthew Burdick truly is a psychopath or he's just psychopathic. What I can tell you, based on his observable behaviors, what he's doing online, he is behaving in a psychopathic manner. Is he sadistic? Does he enjoy the harm he's causing others? I don't know. Is he Machiavellian, which is the ends justify the means? Most certainly. You can see in his writing, he feels justified in him doing it, but then he phrases it as he is an activist. He's a whistleblower. So he kind of, he cloaks his nastiness in a rationale. Okay. So it's hard to know, but the predatory troll, again, unless you do psychological testing and collateral, they are at much higher rates of being being personality disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, and on to on. And when an individual is access to personality disorder, there's no cure. And again, I've been doing this for many years. Okay. You can treat and you can medicate, and you can't cure schizophrenia. You can't cure completely depression, but you can help reduce the symptomatology. But when it comes to access to personality disorders, what I believe predatory trolls are at much higher rates of, antisocial, narcissistic, schizotypal, on and on. You cannot cure it. You can't medicate it. You can't treat it. The only thing you can do is to reduce the negative consequence of their personality disorder. That's all you can do when it comes to personality disorders.
And I think, there's been so much that I've seen with the video. There's no punishment. And I think it will have to take maybe a Facebook, a Twitter, something. There'll have to be a team, maybe people dedicated to this. Like, have you heard of? Is there people that are like specifically monitoring, trolling? But there has to be, right? Is there not enough?
No, there's not. I mean, what I'm starting to see slowly but surely is, and again, I understand we are at the beginning of a period of history called the information age. I've mentioned that before.
My favorite. We did an episode on it. Information age wellness 181. Check it out.
Right. 1983, so we're at the beginning of a period of history that I'm assuming is going to last centuries. Now that we're dealing with virtual reality, artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, they're all going to be part of this whole information age piece. Okay. But we're at the beginning of a period. So right now, we don't have systems in place. What do you do to help a victim of somebody who's being cyber attacked? How do we deal with the First Amendment, freedom of speech? How far is an individual able to go out and to disinform and to defame and slander you without suffering consequences? Do we have to now create an entire new arm of the legal system where we're dealing in civil litigation? Because we know when we move into the personal injury realm, You have to be able to show true black and white negative consequences of the predatory trolls, his disinformation campaigns. You have to be able to show how it's hurt you in dollars and cents, or medically and psyche. You have to be able to prove that you have suffered negative consequences. That's very difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny. I've taken the approach of one of this. I showed one of the partners I work with. I was like, listen, here's this documentary. Just check it out because I'm dealing with this a little bit. And for me, it gave me a sense of leverage. Everybody's like, wow, this guy's really nuts. Showed him the documentary. Like, I've watched that documentary with 7 women, Dr. Nooch. They're all like, this is unbelievable. Like, that's my most watched thing this year is Social Media Monster. And I know we're talking about it, it's interesting to us, but as far as the cinematography, the filmmaking, and it's well done. And Ross is just a master of this craft, and you feel that he oozes this when he goes through. I just wanted to mention that piece as well. Besides this topic being great and us loving it and discussing it, bringing it to light, he's really good at what he does. And
and one thing I want to hit home before we sign off, Scott. And again, thank you for having me on, for us to be able to talk about predatory trolls. It's and includes you as well as, you're an influencer, Mr. Scott. Celebrities, people that are big. You're an influencer. Pat yourself on the back. Good for you. But predatory trolls love to target influencers, whether we call them celebrities, public figures, politicians, hosts, influencers. That is the big term right now. We'll see how long the term influencer lasts. But influencers are at much higher rates of being targeted. Why? Because if a predatory troll can get under the influencer's skin, he or she may have the spotlight on them. And what we're learning about the predatory troll is all news is good news for them. So even if they're identified as a predatory troll, even if they're identified as being a negative, parasitic entity, they feel good about themselves. And that goes into that narcissism, psychopathic is, now the light is shining on me. So for those of you that are influencers, it's understanding how important it is to identify when, because you will be, all influencers are targeted at one time. Is that iPredator, is he or she an internet troll or a predatory troll? Because if he or she is a predatory troll, you have got to do something about it, whether going, retaining legal counsel or possibly, dealing with public relations and how you're going to deal with that individual or individuals, because there are groups, troll triad, that target. How do you deal with that? I am telling the influencers, all of you, I have helped people that have lost their career, have lost money, and have lost their bread and butter because they've been targeted by a troll.
Yeah. And that's such an important piece for influencers listening, my friends, and people that think you don't have the power. It is your suffering that is bringing them pleasure. So remember, don't give in to any of that bullshit, and we'll be okay. And if you need Dr. Nooch, if you need me, just reach out to either one of us. We're very available. Just the email, all this shit. And that's it. Dr. Nooch, anything else you want to add?
Well, what I want to add is that what you're going to have back to back after me, you're going to have Ross and the presentation of Social Media Monster. And I just have to say is, once you see this documentary, you're going to understand the length, the breadth, and well, those of you that have been targeted by predatory trolls, you're going to be celebrating Social Media Monster. Again, I wrote iPredator back in 2009, 2010. So I've seen this nonsense for over a decade. But what Ross has done is he has put this into a documentary. Again, not that it brought me to tears, but it almost brought me to tears because it made me realize that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of Matthew Burdicks out there. And now there is a documentary that's presenting this type of iPredator.
Absolutely. And I was glad to hear that he's bringing it to a bunch of different networks, and he has the hookup with the guy who's going to set it up. So you will be seeing it. It's just a question of, you're going to be seeing it from me and Dr. Nooch. Hopefully it's on Netflix. That would be awesome. Dr.
Oh,
Nooch.
that would be great.
And you guys have this. We'll be on about 40, 50 minutes. I recorded a Ross episode. It's coming right after this on Monday. That one's a doozy. So you guys got about 3 or 4 hours of content to listen to. We got a lot of stuff to read. Any questions, feel free to reach out to Dr. Nooch or myself. And that's it, Dr. Nooch. As always, man, thank you so much.
Oh, and thank you, Scott. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And thank you, Mr. Burdick, because October we had 100,000 downloads. Thank you for Ross and you, doctors, the biggest month in the history of us. I can't believe how many people listen to me. It's crazy. Cause and Effect, guys. Thank you so much. This will be on YouTube too. So if you're on YouTube watching the new channel, like, review, subscribe. If you're listening, just keep telling one of your friends about it and a couple. And this topic, Dr. Nooch, people love this shit. I have people that there's something going on here. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to Dr. Nooch. All his information is below. That's it. As always, stay safe, stay positive, stay blessed. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.